This video shows the most important aspects related to the disassembly and assembly of Type A4B automatic transaxle. Some details of operation, caution aspects, and parts names in this video have been omitted. During real operation, please proceed according to the repair manual. Before starting the operation, remove the sand and mud adhered to the transmission case. Until removing the oil pan, operation should be performed while the transmission case is upward. If this has failed to be observed, there's a possibility that foreign matter may enter into the valve body if the transmission case is turned upside down. Before proceeding, clean the workplace, organize the tools, etc. First, prepare the SST, shop paper towels, and boxes for removed parts, etc. First, remove the following parts: the transmission oil filler tube subassembly, the transmission revolution sensor, the transmission solenoid connector subassembly, and the neutral start switch assembly. Remove the oil pan assembly. Remove the oil strainer subassembly. Remove the detent spring subassembly. Remove the valve body assembly by removing 6 bolts. Remove the second and fourth cylinder seal. This part cannot be reused. Remove the speedometer sleeve lock plate by removing the attaching bolt. Then remove the spring. Push the input shaft towards the inside to eliminate free play. Then measure the end plate. Record the measured value. Evenly loosen the attaching bolts of the oil pump assembly and remove the bolts. Remove only those bolts marked with a red arrow. Using the SST, remove the oil pump assembly. Pull out the input shaft together with the front clutch and rear clutch. Disassemble the front clutch from the rear clutch. Remove the planetary sun gear subassembly. Disassemble the removed parts as shown here. Using a thickness gauge, measure the end play of the second and fourth brake in 3 different positions. Record the measured value. Remove the snap ring. Remove the brake plate, brake number 1 disc, and brake number 1 flange. Remove the snap ring. Remove the second and fourth brake piston, spring sheet, and return spring. Holding the second and fourth brake cylinders while protecting your fingers using a soft paper towel or shop towel, remove the piston subassembly from the second and fourth brake cylinder. Do not hurt yourself with the edge of the piston and cylinder. For units assembled after May 2002, remove the O-rings from the inner and outer surfaces of the second brake piston subassembly. Do not reuse the removed O-rings. Remove the one-way clutch and the planetary assembly. Disassemble the one-way clutch from the planetary gear assembly. Do not apply even light impact to the one-way clutch. Failure to observe this caution may cause the rollers to come off from the one-way clutch. If the rollers come off, the one-way clutch cannot be reused. Remove the thrust bearing from the planetary ring gear assembly. Measure the first and reverse brake end plate. Record the measured value. Remove the snap ring. Remove the brake flange, brake plates, and brake discs. Using a knock pin punch and a hammer, remove the manual valve lever subassembly. Remove the manual valve lever shaft towards the engine side. Remove the torque converter and differential case by removing the attaching bolts. Remove the differential gear and lubrication tube. Remove the differential assembly. Remove the transmission rear case cover by removing the attaching bolt. Separate the rear cover by tapping the rib portion lightly and evenly with a plastic hammer, and then remove the rear cover. Separate the reduction driver gear from the rear cover by tapping the rear cover lightly, even if the reduction driver gear comes off with the rear cover. Insert the manual valve lever shaft temporarily on the engine side of the transmission case. Secure the reduction driver gear from turning by the manual valve lever subassembly. Use an impact wrench to remove the lock nut. At this time, care must be exercised to not interfere with the gear while holding the bearing. Remove the metal chip like this. If it appears at the stake position of the lock nut. Remove the reduction-driven gear. Using a brass bar and a hammer, remove the output shaft. Do not drop the output shaft when the drive is out. Remove the snap ring that secures the radial ball bearing. Remove the radial ball bearing. Remove the snap ring that is securing the radial ball bearing. Using the SST, remove the cylindrical roller bearing. This part is not reusable. Pull out the temporary inserted manual valve lever shaft to the engine side. Remove the parking lock rod subassembly and separate the manual valve lever subassembly and the parking lot rod subassembly. Place a shop paper towel or similar inside the case. And using a brass bar and a hammer, remove the planetary ring gear assembly. Remove the reduction drive gear. Remove the radial ball bearing. Remove the torsion spring, parking lock pole, and shaft. Install the SST in the transmission case and remove the first and reverse brake piston. Secure the SST at a position of 1 millimeter lower from the lower edge of the snap ring ditch. While retracting the snap ring, loosen the SST bolt and remove it. Remove the snap ring. Remove the return spring and spring sheath. Then, finally remove the piston. The removed piston cannot be reused. This is the end of the disassembling procedure. Some of the component parts have changed from May of 2000. Let's compare the parts between current and former ones. Planetary gear assembly. The current thrust bearing has a ledge on its outer periphery. The former thrust bearing does not have it. This is the rear planetary sun gear subassembly. The part of the gear surface with the edge is on the current type. The one with the flat surface is the former one. This is the intermediate shaft subassembly. The type with an oil penetration hole is the current type. The one without the hole is the former type. The above three parts do not have interchangeability between the former ones and the current ones. This is the planetary ring gear assembly. The length of the spleen on the tip of the current shaft is short. The longer one is the former type. This is the reduction drive gear. The current type does not have a bulge inside the gear. The former type has a bulge. This table shows interchangeability of these two parts. This is the second brake piston subassembly. The current aluminum type piston has an O-ring, while the former type is an iron piston with a rubber lip. The former one cannot be reused once it's removed. In the case of the former type of the second brake piston subassembly, be sure to use the former type brake flange. Please take caution. Due to the difficulty of identifying current types and former types by appearance, do not mix them together. In order to protect the piston from damage due to interference with uneven protrusion in the transmission case, insert a thick plastic bag that is open on the bottom as a protector. Apply ATF to the first and reverse brake piston and insert into the case. While inserting the piston into the case, be careful not to pinch the bag. Remove the plastic bag and install the piston by pushing it in. Install the return spring and the spring sheet. Install the snap ring temporarily on the spring sheet. Install the SST on the transmission case. Tighten the SST until the spring sheet is located 1 millimeter lower than the snap ring attaching ditch. Install the snap ring and remove the SST. Using an SST, install the roller bearing vertically against the transmission case. Install the snap ring and ensure that it has been engaged into the ditch. Install the radial ball bearing into the transmission case. Install the SST. Install the radial ball bearing to the planetary ring gear manually at a right angle. Install the bearing in combination with the SST and a hammer. Install the radial ball bearing into the transmission case using the SST. Then install the SST. Insert the output shaft into the transmission case from the engine side and drive it in by using a combination of a hammer and the brass bar. Install the snap spring. Install the parking lock pole and shaft, as well as the torsion spring into the transmission case. After installation, ensure that the parking lock pole is returned to its initial position. Install the manual valve lever subassembly while aligning the recessed section of the lever with the protruding section of the parking lock rod subassembly. Temporarily install the manual valve lever shaft from the engine side of the transmission case. Install the reduction driven gear. And the reduction drive gear. Secure movement of the reduction drive gear by operating the manual valve lever subassembly. Install the new lock nut. Tighten the lock nut to the specified tightening torque. Using the SST, stake the lock nut. Install the SST on the output shaft while aligning the nail of the SST with the recessed portion of the output shaft, and tighten the SST by hand until clearance indicated by the arrow mark becomes parallel. Using the wrench, tighten the SST approximately 90 degrees. If the nail of the SST is made slightly bigger, be careful that the nut is not staked too much. Remove the SST and ensure that the nut has staked properly and is not cracked. Install the differential assembly into the transmission case. Install the differential gear lubrication apply tube. Remove the manual valve lever shaft that was installed temporarily towards the engine side. Clean and grease the torque converter and differential case and transmission case, and apply liquid gasket thoroughly. Assemble the transmission case within 3 minutes after applying the liquid gasket. Install the seal bolts in 2 places as shown. Install the control cable bracket. And a clamp. Install the remaining bolts as shown. In order to prevent the oil seal from damage, apply the AFT to the tip part of the manual lever shaft. Insert it from the engine side of the case. Using a knock pin punch and a hammer, install the new slotted spring pin. Clean and grease from the rear cover and the transmission case, and apply liquid gasket evenly. Assemble the transmission case rear cover within 3 minutes after liquid gasket is applied. Install the number 2 hanger and the engine mounting lower left bracket. Install the 4 seal bolts in the position as shown. As for the Syrian and the YRV, do not install the bolt indicated by the arrow mark. It is tightened together with the oil filler tube. Align the recessed portion of the protruding part of the brake plate and brake flange to the circle mark position as shown. Assemble the parts in the order shown here. Then install the snap ring after installing the parts. Measure the first and reverse brake end play. In case the end play fails to comply with a specified value, select the part having the suitable thickness from the table as shown. An identification stamp mark is provided on the position as shown. Apply ATF to the thrust bearing and install the planetary ring gear assembly while making sure the direction of the bearing is correct. Install the planetary gear assembly and ensure that it turns smoothly. Install the one-way clutch. Install it while aligning the recessed portion of the protruding section with the circle mark. Install the O-ring on the second brake piston with ATF applied. Install the O-ring in such a manner that the flat surface is toward the piston side. When assembling the new piston, it should be assembled while aligning the protrusion of the cylinder and the protruding part of the piston. Assemble the second and fourth brake cylinder and second brake piston while aligning its protruded portions with the circle mark. Install the return spring and spring sheets. Install the spring sheet in such a manner that the hole provided should align with the position indicated by the circle mark as shown. Install the snap ring temporarily. Assemble the opening position towards the upper side of the transmission case. Using the SST, press down the spring sheet. Install the snap ring. Be careful not to depress the spring sheet directly. Install the brake number 1 flange, the brake number 1 disc, and the brake plate while aligning the recessed portion of the protruding part with the circle mark. Then install the snap ring securely. Measure the second and fourth brake end play. In case the end play fails to comply with the specified value, select the part having the suitable thickness of the snap ring from the table as shown. Assemble the rear planetary sun gear subassembly into the planetary gear assembly. Install the thrust bearing into the planetary sun gear subassembly and assemble it onto the planetary gear subassembly. Install the thrust needled roller bearing into the forward clutch hub and assemble it to the rear planetary sun gear subassembly. Install the thrust bearing into the intermediate shaft subassembly with care Do not install it in the reverse direction. Then attach it to the forward clutch hub. Secure the parking lock by operating the manual valve lever. Ensure that when turning the forward clutch hub counterclockwise, the planetary sun gear and intermediate shaft subassembly rotate in a clockwise direction smoothly. Also ensure that the forward clutch hub will not turn in a clockwise direction. Apply ATF to the inside of the SST. And install it into the rear clutch. Install the front clutch into the rear clutch. While turning it to the left and right, temporarily assemble it at 10 millimeters below the surface of the oil pump attaching surface. Install the SST on the input shaft. Engage the parking lock. And install the clutch while turning the SST with both hands. When it is assembled with the line indicated by the arrow mark, it shows the position of assembly is correct. Using the SST and a caliper gauge, measure the depth at 3 positions around the clutch. Subtract 10 millimeters of thickness of the SST from the measured value. Apply ATF to the thrust bearing and install it on the front clutch. Install an SST on the transmission case. Install the oil pump assembly. Tighten the 7 bolts with the specified torque evenly after removing the SST. Using the SST and dial gauge, measure the input shaft end plate. When the measured value fails to comply with the specified value, select the thrust washer having the suitable thickness from the table shown. Install the 2nd and 4th brake cylinder seal and the spring. Install the valve body. At this time, place the solenoid connector on the outside of the case from the hole. Install the manual valve lever subassembly while aligning the protrusion of the manual valve lever subassembly with the ditch of the manual valve. Tighten the 2 guide bolts as shown by the arrow, while tightening to the specified torque first. Then tighten the 4 remaining bolts to the specified torque. Install the SST while aligning the ditch between the manual valve and valve body subassembly. Install the detent spring subassembly and tighten the A bolt first, and next tighten the B bolt in this sequence. At this time, ensure that the roller of the detent spring subassembly is aligned with the ditch of the manual lever subassembly. The rest of the work is done as follows. How was it? This was the assembly and disassembly of the A4B automatic transaxle. Please practice again with the unit repair manual for reference. We hope that you will learn a lot and take advantage of this video.